Where you at, George?
I'm at my house. I'm in my messy office.
Where are you in California, though?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm in Vegas.
Ah. We're live. Hey guys, it's Tom Owens again from MMA Fight Pass. I'm here in Farmersville, California at Team KO Training Center. Today I got a special guest. We're coming to you guys with the man behind the scenes of MMA Junkie Radio and MMAJunkie.com. George Garcia, thank you for coming on, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a real honor, man. Guys, this is our only, George, bear with us, this is only our second Skype interview. So we're still...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is our second one, and we're really honored to have you as a guest. I've been following you.
Why wasn't I number one? Who was number one?
Number one was actually one of our partners on the show. It was a training run.
All right, I guess I could take a back seat to that guy. All right.
Today's our 70th. So George, this is our we've been active for about a year now, and this is our 70th podcast today. So thank you again for coming on. I know you got a lot of big things going on, and you're probably pretty busy. Are you? Your studio, if I'm not mistaken, are you in Mandalay Bay?
Correct. Yeah, we are in the sportsbook inside the Mandalay Bay. That's been our home for the last almost 11 years. I believe February 1st or March 1st. I get them confused. But one of those two will be our 11th year.
11th year, man, that's really something. Talk to us a little bit about the podcast. I know it's MMAJunkie.com, but are you there's also a radio part? How does that work? Are you the main guy for the radio?
I'm the host of the radio show, correct. And we do our show now in podcast form, same as you guys. Mondays and Thursdays we drop at 9 a.m. Pacific. Sometimes we go in there and do it the night before, just depending if there's really hot news. Like last night, for example, I thought the press conference with Conor McGregor and Cerrone, even though it didn't have the fireworks we were expecting, we just couldn't wait to talk about it. So we went in there and did it a little bit early. We did it last night, but it was ready to go for today. So yeah, I'm the host of the radio show along with my brother. He's my co-host. He's been my sidekick for the last 13 years.
Now, you and your brother, are you guys the first ones to get this going?
You mean in as far as MMA radio shows?
Yes, sir. Or MMAJunkie.com. Did you guys come up with that yourself, or was it somebody else's idea?
That was the baby of Dan Stupp, our former editor-in-chief. He created MMA Junkie as a small blog. He just wanted to do something different. He actually worked for the Cincinnati Reds, but he wanted to do some additional writing, and he knew that MMA was kind of blowing up. This was back in 2006, and so he created UFCJunkie.com. Then, of course, he got one of the nasty letters that said you can't use those 3 letters, so he had to become MMAJunkie.com. At the same time, Goes and I, that's my brother, we started Tag Radio, TAGG, which stands for Trig and Gorgeous George. Frank Trigg was our co-host, and we did that for about 2 years. The last 18 months, though, being under the umbrella of MMA Junkie, and so that's why Tag Radio eventually became MMA Junkie Radio, because they purchased us. They liked what we were doing, and we thought MMA Junkie would be a great home for us to be their official radio show, because they were just blowing up at the time, and it was a way for our audience to grow. So we helped each other mutually.
Now, you guys, we've been following you and watching you for a long time. I can tell that you're a big fan of mixed martial arts and probably all of the combat arts. Did you and your brother, when you were younger, did you guys train in martial arts, or what got you into this? What got you started?
He did a little karate. I did a little bit of boxing and jiu-jitsu, but nothing to the point where we were savages in the gym, because we basically played other sports. The big 3. He played soccer, some baseball, and we were just fans more than anything of mixed martial arts. So even though we dabbled a little bit, it wasn't anything other than the break of sweat from time to time. But we just fell in love with it. I mean, starting with UFC 1 in 1993, because I remember reading an article in the Orange County Register, and it was in the back of the sports page, and it just said who would win. Something along the lines was debate. and it featured a karate guy, a boxer, a wrestler. And even though I didn't recognize a few of the names, or actually most of them, I thought, okay, this will be interesting to see how this goes. And I right away, man, when Gerard Gordeau kicked that tooth out of Taylor Thule, I was like, wow, and so we were just super fans from day one.
Man, that brings back some memories going way back then. That's really, really crazy. When you guys started, like you and your brother, I know besides being fans and going to being able to get into these shows, what was then and what is now like your main mission with your show? Like, what do you, for the fans, because there's a lot of us fans that have been around the whole time and we recognize the sport and we know what's going on, but this sport, it seems to always be bringing in new people. You know what I mean? There's always a new fan, it seems like every day. What is your main mission with this radio show?
Well, I would say that in the early days, we wanted to continue the legacy of one Ryan Bennett. Ryan Bennett was the host of MMA Weekly Radio. And so, I talked about 1993 and falling in love with the sport. And so I kept up with it, even through the dark ages. And then I found a podcast called MMA Weekly Radio. That one featured a guy named Ryan Bennett, who was actually from Central California as well, San Luis Obispo, so more on the coastal side, and then Frank Trigg. So I would be in their chat room. I loved their show. They talked to all the big stars, including Dana White and Joe Silva. Joe Silva, the matchmaker, who after doing appearances there, he never really did any more interviews. But it was the accessibility to the athletes. As a fan, it was really cool. You could call in and ask a question, and when they went on the road, just like you guys are right now, they would actually tell their fans, hey, come on down. We're at this hotel or at this bar or whatever. And so my brother and I would go down, and that's how we got to know Frank. And then in 2006, May 31st of 2006, Ryan was taking his family to Las Vegas. He lived in Utah at the time, and he tragically passed in a car accident. And so us fans were left without a show, basically, because he was the host and Frank Trigg was the co-host. And I remember after about 3 months of mourning, and I think finally we approached Trigg and said, hey, look, what's the plan for the future of the show? And he dilly-dallied with a few ideas, but he just couldn't come to an agreement with any other hosts. And by then we had kind of befriended him a little bit, and my brother suggested, why don't you host it? And so I thought, I've never done something like that before. And I wasn't really warm to it at first, but I think one thing I told myself a long time ago, Tom, was I'll try anything and not be scared to fail rather than not try something and have the regret, So I thought I would love it. And Frank, I think, he perked up because he thought the same way Ryan, a professional broadcaster, groomed me, a professional fighter with no broadcasting experience, I will now groom George and goes, Because now, by then, Frank had 4 years under his belt with Ryan. They had done 1,000 shows. And if you'll recall, Frank was the co-host on Pride Fighting Championships with Mauro Ranallo. He was also doing MMA, some highlight shows with Jay Glazer on Fox Sports. So by then, he had really acquired a lot of skills, and so I think he took it upon himself to kind of groom us, and he trusted us, he liked us, and so we started Tag Radio. I'm sorry, that was a long answer.
That was a long answer. Hey, the longer answers you have, the easier it is for me. Hey, man, but I'm glad you talked about Ryan Bennett. Ryan Bennett actually worked out here at the WEC at Lemoore, California, and that was
right.
That was a spot that not only myself, but a lot of my training partners and a lot of these local guys that made it big, we all got our start out there in either Gladiator Challenge or the World Extreme Cage Fighting. And Ryan Bennett, he was a dear friend to not only the Indian reservation, but to Scott Adams and Christian Printup and all these Reed Harris, all these different guys that were a part of the WEC. So yeah, rest in peace, Ryan Bennett. I'm sure he's out there above watching us all do our thing.
Yeah, and so now I remember part of your question was what was it that drove us? And it was basically, I knew I could never replace Ryan Bennett, but I just wanted to keep what he had started going, and that was the daily MMA radio show, kind of to give everybody their fix. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know the news, back then there wasn't as much news, but every day I woke up and I wanted to know what fights were being made, what was being rumored, and what I could look forward to on the next UFC or Pride card. So we wanted to keep that going as best as we could. And that's why in the back of our studio, there's a cage right behind us. You'll see Ryan Bennett's name. So just like you said, respect to him. And then in the later years, I guess what we've always said was it was like a unofficial little like mantra of ours. We wanted non-fans to become casual fans to become hardcore fans, and hardcore fans to become junkies like us. So we could just take you to that next level. And if you went from non-fan to junkie, even better. But we just wanted to take you on a journey through our daily radio show, getting to know the fighters, and introduce you to a new sport. Because in 1993, I was a huge fan of all the major sports, but some of them had to take a seat to MMA because I became a huge fan of MMA.
A huge fan you are. You guys, like to us, maybe a lot of regular people out there, I call them regular people, but people that, they don't know who's behind the scenes of shows like this. To us, we're brand new. This is I say it a lot, we're about a little over a year now. But we started 3 years ago. A year. We're into 3 years now. Time flies by quick. And I still feel like we're just brand new at this. So for us to talk to someone like you, it's kind of a big deal to me. This guy's laughing at me back here. Hey, we just want to know, like, as a new show, and for me, what are some tips that you could give some people like us? We love the sport, we follow it, and we've been around it for a long time. We compete, and we want to get our show to. Eventually, we would love to be able to get backstage passes and be able to go to Bellator and go to UFC. What advice could you give us for something like that?
Well, I guess what really turned it around for us was that union of Tag Radio becoming the official radio show of MMA Junkie. So I guess I would advise, for one, be consistent with whatever you choose to. A monthly show, a radio show, a weekly show, a daily show, twice a week, whatever it is, be consistent. You want your audience to count on you. And then two, find yourself a website that is similar to yours. A year in, say have the same passion as you, and your show can, where you interview fighters or guests, that can become content for the website. You know what I mean? So the website benefits from your show, you benefit from them linking back to you. At least that's how we did it back in the day. Things have obviously grown a little bit now, but there's a lot of quality websites out there. And if you'll notice, some of them have their own official shows, some of them don't. I would try and maybe link up with one of them.
Yeah, thank you. Very good answer. Yeah, we're always looking for more tips, and as technology grows, we're trying to, I'm not a technology guy, but luckily I have my Archie Tovar here. He is a computer technician. He's always we're trying to keep up with the technology. It grows quick. Out of all the podcasts you've done, I'm not sure, did you say how many podcasts or shows are you guys at now around?
Well, we just did our 3,000 show back about 2 months ago, so we're probably about 3,020, somewhere around there. Because now we're only down to twice a week, and we used to go 5 days a week. So you can rack up shows quickly that way. But now that we're at a slower pace, our numbers aren't going to climb as high. But we're at around 3,020.
Man, that's something else. That's really something else. Out of those shows, is there any that stand out to you, like right offhand, like some of your favorite ones?
Well, I get that question a lot, and it's real difficult to answer because 3,000 shows is a lot of shows, and so there's a lot of things we've gone through. But what I've told people is, I guess the funnest ones were just like when you're, high school, college, whatever, like when you're chasing your dream girl, or if you're a single guy, just trying to date girls, find your way, fall in love, that type of thing. With a lot of the fighters, it was that little chase of trying to get them on in our studio is what we wanted to do. And luckily, living in Las Vegas has afforded us that opportunity. Man, I'm telling you, when Wanderlei Silva first moved to Las Vegas, he was tough to pin down. When we saw him, he was excited, gave us a big hug, said he'd love to do it. But then when We started exchanging texts. We're trying to, get it going. Couldn't get it going. Took us probably a few months, but then finally he came to our studio and did a show, and it was awesome. We took a lot of calls. A lot of fans got to talk to him. I remember one kid named Brad. He called in and he was choked up because he didn't even know what to say. And Vanderlei said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to give you the shirt." He actually took off the shirt and did the rest of our show without a shirt. And he signed it and mailed it off to the guy. So that one just kind of held a lot of special memories for us. And at the same time, I was a huge Vanderlei Silva fan. I used to stay up till 3 a.m. to watch this guy knock out, Sakuraba or Rampage or do whatever. That 20-fight unbeaten streak that he had in Pride, he was incredible. So it was kind of great to finally lock him down. We once got Chuck Zito pretty quickly too in our studio. Now he's not a fighter per se, an MMA fighter, but he had some great street fight stories. And I remember he actually went to our house in Santa Ana, California, and was in studio there. And we had him for like 2 hours. He told us some great stories, knocking out Jean-Claude Van Damme at Scores, the strip club in New York. Yeah, he told us a good one there. And then they actually had a run-in with the real Henry Hill from Goodfellas. And then after that, we went and grabbed the lunch. But again, it was just kind of cool in the early days when all this was happening so quick.
Chuck Zito, wasn't he one of those dudes that played in all those mafia movies?
He's played in some, but he was most famous probably, he was known as like the bodyguard to the stars. So he was like the bodyguard to Charlie Sheen and Pamela Anderson. He was one of the early, if not the first, actual like Hollywood guys, celebrities to go to UFCs. He was in, I forget the name of the show, on HBO. Do you remember, Tom? The one that had to do with prison?
Dude, there's so many of those mafia movies.
I know. That was so general. Anyway, he was recently in Frankie in Sons of Anarchy a few years ago. I can't believe that I'm blanking out on the HBO show, but that was one of the ones that really brought him out there. But a lot of people in the MMA world know who he is.
Oh, definitely did. And he's been at probably more UFCs than most people. I want to ask you this, bro. George, as you guys grew with your podcast and you started getting more and more popular, at what moment, I'm sure you probably remember it pretty clearly, what was it like when you got that first media pass to the UFC? Because that's what we are, excited. We know one day we're going to reach that point. We're going to stick with it. What was that like?
Oof, I'm not sure I can remember what the first show is. I'm staring at a bunch of badges over there to my left. I'd have to flip through them and see. I know that our first show ever was probably 32 and 34, or 33 and 34. The ones that were here in Las Vegas. We got to go to the Affliction shows as well, and then another one I clearly remember that was one that was unforgettable was the Playboy Mansion hosted a Strike Force. So that was really cool. I guess by the time we got to the UFC, it must have been like in the 70s or so, and we probably under the Junkie banner. I don't think we got to go as Tag Radio. I think we may have gone under the Junkie banner. So anytime after like 2008-ish is probably when we got to go to the fights. And I mean, by then we had experienced so many of them as fans and as media at other shows that I'm sure it was pretty special, but I just don't remember the exact one.
That's so cool, man. I can't even imagine, dude. Hey, I wanted to ask you something. We have different guests that have asked questions, but I was watching a video of you one time, and it looked like you had agreed to take a punch from somebody. Was that a UFC fighter? What was up with that?
I think at the time, Rev Gear had given us some equipment, and they gave us one of those Muay Thai body pads. So a lot of the fighters used to give us body shots with them, because obviously we're not as crazy as that guy from One Championship. I don't know if you saw that video with him taking the body shots from his from the fellow teammates that he has over there in Florida at Hard Knocks Gym. But yeah, we used to take some shots with that. My brother was the one that actually did more of the, we'll say, stunts. He once got slapped by Lyoto Machida. He wanted to do it because Lyoto Machida had once gotten slapped by Antonio Inoki in Japan. So he wanted to see what it was like. And then the real funny one was Cub Swanson put him to sleep once. Oh, no, excuse me, Miguel Torres, the former WEC champ. He put him to sleep once.
Miguel with the mullet?
Uh-huh. And then another great one was Daniel Cormier put him in like a torture rack above his head.
Oh, no.
And that one was hilarious. So Goes was the one that I guess took more of those little beatings. As far as me getting punched, I mean, I've gotten kicked in the leg by Cub Swanson. I've gotten choked out and things like that. But on the body, I probably was too big of a wimp to just take it straight. I think I took it with the big tie pad.
Yeah, you had a tie pad on, but it still looked like a pretty hard punch.
Oh, yeah, you still felt it for sure.
That's crazy, man. Another question that this is one that I was wondering myself. It looks like you have a nickname, man. A lot of people have nicknames, but you have a nickname of Gorgeous George. Who gave you that one?
Well, I wish I could tell you it was a ring card girl or some supermodel or whatever, but it was actually my high school teacher, football teacher. Well, he was my history teacher, and basically, his way of remembering the students the first couple days of class was he gave them all nicknames. So, the typical ones like Diamond Jim, Big Al, Sweet Lou, and somehow I got stuck with Gorgeous George. But I think it was one of those that probably referenced the pro wrestler, and that was just his way of, when he was calling on people and he was going through a rapid fire. What we read the night before, he would always point to us, and with the fellas, it would help him remember the nickname. So he kind of got one, and I thought, man, it could have been worse. I could have been Curious George or Georgie Porgy or something. So I'll take it. And that's mine. That's how I got it.
Hey, at least you have it. I got a few nicknames that aren't anything like that. So I know you're real busy, and coming up this weekend we got the fight. We got a big fight, and everybody's asking everybody who's going to take the fight and their opinion of it. I'd love to get to hear a little bit from you. What do you think about the Conor McGregor and the Donald Cerrone fight? Like, how do you look at a fight like this and how it might play out?
Well, the fight's going to be tremendous because Conor McGregor is just tremendous business for the company, for himself, and honestly, for MMA Junkie. I can't hate on Conor McGregor anytime he wants to fight, whatever it may be, whether it be boxing. I may not agree with the actual matchmaking sometimes or what he's doing, but once the fight's made and once we're here in fight week, it's pretty tremendous, especially here in Vegas. The town goes nuts. The Irish come strong to Vegas. It's something that you rarely see, comparable to when like Julio Cesar Chavez used to fight and the Mexicans would come to town, or even when Manny Pacquiao was at his height and a lot of the Filipinos would come to town. It's along those lines. But, breaking down the fight itself, I didn't like it at first when I heard it. I thought if they're telling us that if Conor wins, he's going to fight the winner of Khabib and Tony, then they're calling this like a number one contender fight. Why is he fighting the guy that lost to Justin Gaethje? Justin Gaethje's won 3 in a row. Justin Gaethje's the number one contender. Get over on him, and if you can beat him, then you get the winner of Khabib and Tony. You know what I mean? I don't mind that Conor's popularity allows him to cut the line. And I don't mind that. I get that. I get the business, the politics side of it. But got to make a little bit of sense. You know what I mean? And again, Gaethje just beat Cowboy Cerrone. You would think he would want to play. You think he'd want to fight Gaethje and not Cerrone?
Right.
That said, I think the fight will go in Conor's favor. I think Cerrone at times is too macho, for his own ego. He does have some wrestling, and he's got great jiu-jitsu. And if he wants to go that route, whether he gets stuffed or not, at least get into Conor's head that, hey, look, I'm capable of taking this fight to the ground. If he does a little bit of that, then I think maybe the fight can go a little bit further, into the later rounds. And if it does, you might want to favor Cowboy because, again, he just has more tools. Once the fighters get a little bit tired, they tend to stray away and do, make mistakes or whatever. But I don't see that happening. I think Donald wants to put on a show, and show that, hey, look, I got some quality kickboxing, which he does. But he's had a little bit of trouble with the southpaws, especially the ones that can hit hard and get in your space, get in that phone booth fighting range, which is what McGregor does. McGregor doesn't just dance around; he comes forward. And man, that guy's got a hell of a left left hand.
Yeah, he's got a hell of a left hand, and man, it's sneaky, that thing. He's really good at setting that thing up with the smallest little feints that the average guy may not recognize. But yeah, I can see it. And Donald Cerrone has a hell of a double leg and a single leg takedown, and he does have, from what I've heard, I've met several training partners, they say that he's black belt level when it comes to his jiu-jitsu. But man, Donald, we all know Donald Cerrone, he not only does he love to give the crowd a good fight, I truly believe that Donald loves to fight like that, man. He loves to stand up and get in a good little slugfest. He just seems to have that in him. That's going to be a great fight. And it sounds like that he's getting a pretty good paycheck, which is, it's cool to hear too. Another fight that I'd would like to hear your take on is the Holm versus Raquel Pennington, because if I'm not mistaken, they fought once before and it went to a split decision.
Correct. They actually fought down in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken, and it was a close fight. I didn't think it was some sort of a robbery or anything. The judges gave Holly the decision. I was fine with that. The ladies at 135 have too many options. It's way deeper than 145. It's not as deep as 115. So you're often going to get a lot of these rematch type fights. I mean, I don't really see the need for it, but okay, it's here. It's the co-main event, and it'll be interesting to see. I know Raquel, it means a lot to her, and Holly did some interviews this week. She still wants to be a champion. That's why she's in this. So we'll see what happens between them. I think in this one, you know what? I still think Holly just, she was. See, Raquel Pennington's actually got good boxing, but I mean, Holly Holm was a former boxing champion. You know what I mean? And her kickboxing's great as well. I think I still got to lean towards Holly, even though I'll be cheering for Pennington.
Yeah, that's going to be a good fight I'm looking forward to. There's some other good fights on there too. There's one other one I wanted to ask you about, because Anthony Pettis, as you know, he's been around for some time. He's an OG in the game. He's fighting Carlos Diego Ferreira. How do you see that one going?
That's a good one. Ferreira's on a nice streak, and now this is his chance to get over on the Pettis name. I think Pettis knows that his back is to the wall now. He's taken a couple losses in a row, and he's losing to the top guys, and at one point he was the top guy. He can't afford to do that anymore. If he loses to somebody like Ferreira, what's going to happen is he's basically just not going to be what, in these featured bouts that he's been in for the last 10 years. I don't even know that his stock with the company will be as high, and eventually you reach a point where you part ways with the company because you've done as much as you can. And this is where we're at with Ferreira. He's got to win this fight. So I think you're going to get the best Pettis. If you get the best Pettis against the best Ferreira, I still think Pettis has enough gas left in the tank. Speaking of gas in the tank, that seems to be what kind of gets Pettis in some of these fights. He just starts to tire. If he has addressed the cardio, the strength and conditioning, and he can be Anthony Pettis, at a high level for 3 rounds, I think he still has enough to beat Ferreira. Ferreira's just basically young and blasting through people, but we won't know where he's at unless he can get by someone like Pettis. And that's kind of been what's been happening the last few years. If you look at Cowboy Cerrone, remember when Darren Till beat him up in Europe? Darren Till got him, and Cerrone didn't even know who he was. You know what I mean? And that's what the UFC does, is when someone's young and streaking, they'll put him up against one of their veterans who's kind of been falling by the wayside a little bit. And, it can launch somebody, into a big star. And so Ferreira, if he can do to Pettis what Till did to Cerrone, this could be pretty big for him.
Man, that's so cool hearing that. It's really cool, bro. I really appreciate you coming on here and giving us your take on these fights. It's really something else. Again, us as a new company, and we're new to the podcast, and like I said, you're the second Skype that we've had. We're just going to continue to keep on trying to grow. When you guys got your start, like us right now, we're kind of tripping out because we're funding this basically out of our own pockets, and we've been doing it for a while. We're trying to get, we do have some sponsors, but we're trying to grow like that. How long did it take you guys? I mean, did you do the same in the beginning, or were you able to get sponsors in the beginning to fund?
We did have some sponsors in the beginning, but it just wasn't enough. It was enough to maybe sustain the show, But at the same time, like, I was all in on the show. That was my only job. My brother was still going to college at the time, so he was doing the show, but at the time his focus was his degree. And then Frank Trigg, we were paying him a salary as well. So we were able to sustain, but not grow, not take that next level until we got with MMA Junkie. That's why that move with MMA Junkie was tremendous for us, because now they could basically fund, turn the lights on, pay for the internet, pay for, our equipment, or the times that we did our remotes, just like you guys are doing, things like that. And, once they handled all that and just let us do the show, it allowed us to grow that way. But, if you want to do something like as entrepreneurs and on your own, then it's pretty tough. I can't lie to you. It's really, really tough, especially as competitive as it is right now. I don't know. I don't know what the future would hold, because for us, it wasn't looking good. Like I say, it really wasn't looking good until Dan Stupp from MMA Junkie saved us, and it allowed us to keep going. And now we're MMA Junkie Radio versus Tag Radio, and that's fine. We love being MMA Junkie Radio.